We're back. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get into it. I'm Joey,
I'm Lori.
and we are the Christ-centered marriage and family. And we started off talking about our marriage and Christ-centered marriage, and we're gonna get back to that. Now we're transitioning to the blended family aspect. That's what we are. We're a blended family, and we have a goal, we have a desire, a quest, a passion to help those in blended families because we found out pretty quick that you know you come from a marriage that wasn't so great, and then you get remarried and you think this one's going to be better. We're going to get it right. This is going to be right. And guess what? It sometimes it wasn't any better than we maybe the previous. But the one thing that we found is we were determined to make it work. Sometimes that was tough. That was tough. So when people get remarried after divorce or loss of a spouse due to death, they hope for a brand new start. For the divorced person, they hope for a better life than the one they just left. For the person who lost their spouse to the death, they hope to find love again. And they know that the person that they fall in love with is not going to replace the one they just lost. But they want to find someone to eventually marry and try to find love again and regain the married life that they once had. And hope that they can find grief from the loss and move on. But when you go from a marriage where you lose somebody, whether it's divorce or a loss, a death or something like that, and you get remarried, it's not always smooth, is it?
Hmm.
Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not.
It's better at the beginning because it's a new marriage and a new thing. But then real life sets in, and
And
you got problems to deal with.
you take your past situation and you think, I guess it's different if you lose somebody to death. That's kind of tough. I don't know. The person you lost, the spouse you lost, the wife or the husband that died, they may have been exactly who you wanted. But that would be tough to move on from. But eventually you got to move on. And the person you find after that, it's going to be tough to deal with, trying to regroup and love somebody again. But when you come from divorce or a broken marriage, or maybe you're the single parent that you know you're the single mom that you got in a bad relationship and you ended up pregnant and you never got married, and so you're left on your own and you just want to find love. Um, that when you get married, a new relationship, sometimes it's better, but sometimes there's problems you didn't have before. You got a whole new set of problems, a whole new set of conditions. So I got a list here, and the number one on the list, maybe not the most important, but something that probably breaks up a lot of marriages. What they call infidelity. That breaks up a lot of marriages, right?
Mhm.
Intimacy issues, and sometimes intimacy issues in a remarriage is a lot of times different from the first marriage, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes the intimacy issues in the second marriage often stem off the issues from the first marriage. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
You got anything to add on that?
And sometimes, just in our experience, like things popped up later that we didn't realize was baggage from the previous
Right,
relationship.
right.
But it just kind of was like, kind of hit you like, oh, that's okay. That's why I'm feeling that way or whatever.
And you know, the people that counseled us and um, did our pre-marriage counseling or whatever, and did our wedding, they were great. But there's certain things. I got a list of issues that I wish we would have been able to address earlier. I wish somebody would have said, you might have these issues because you're going into a new relationship and you're going to have certain issues. You may have intimacy issues. Like, oh, really? Hmm. I wish somebody would have told us about that. That's why we're doing this video. That's why we're reaching out to you now. Another one is the roles of parents in blended families. So, the young man, young woman get married. They married it's the first time they ever got married. This woman married this man, the first man she's ever married. And this man marries this woman. So they're in their ideal marriage. The only marriage they ever been in. They have kids. They are the parents, the biological parents. They're in marriage. Then they get divorced. And then you get remarried. So challenges of a parent are tough in a normal marriage, right? It's even tougher when you go into a blended family. You got what is the role of the biological parent? So ours is pretty easy because she had kids and I didn't. So we had half of the problem. So she was the biological parent, she is, and I am not. I'm the parent that came in by default, I guess. So you got to figure out what's my role as the step parent. And if I had kids, it would be my kids and her kids. So we both had to figure that out. How do I balance my time with my kids and time with her kids? And she knows the same thing. All these problems that we didn't know before. And we wish somebody would have reached out to us and say, it's going to be difficult as a stepfather. And somebody actually gave me a book that I started reading. I was like, I don't need that book, but I wish I'd read it a little more.
Yeah.
But so that's why we're addressing this now. That's why we are passionate about doing a step family ministry. Another one is spiritual issues. Now, I'm addressing Christians. We are Christians, and this show is a Christ-centered marriage and family show. So, number one, we are Christ-centered. So we are going to assume if you're watching us that you go to church or you want to go to church. If you don't, you should. So if you get remarried to somebody that wasn't your spouse before, one of the things you need to talk about is what is your faith. Because, you might be in love with someone, you may have things that you like about each other and a lot of things in common, but if your faith doesn't coincide, that's going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
What if we have different faiths? So like, what if she is Pentecostal and I am Southern Baptist? How's that going to work? One of us has got to change. That's a problem. Um,
That's the way my parents were growing up. My dad was Catholic and my mom was Baptist. And so my mom had to convert to Catholicism before were allowed to get married in the Catholic Church.
and then, and that's important. I'm addressing this because there's a lot of families that are probably struggling that they got remarried and their faith doesn't coincide. Their spiritual beliefs doesn't coincide. And you'll see a lot of remarried couples that never even go to church together, or rarely you see them both together. That's a problem. And so that's something that needs to be addressed. There needs to be somebody that can counsel them and be there and reach out to them. That's what we're trying to do. Another one is integrating children as a family unit. So this is not a problem for me, but it is a problem for some. Not a big problem for me. Like some of you have your kids, you have my kids, and then if you're young enough to have kids of your own, which we were past that. We were past that. We were past the making new kids stage. So her kids was always going to be. So let's say we were younger and we were remarried again, say we were in our 30s or our 20s. So we have her kids, my kids, and then we made our own kids. So that's a whole big issue. So you need somebody to help you navigate that. And that's what we're trying to do. Um, balancing quality time between the children and parents. How do you balance quality time between your kids and her kids? And then you got to balance time between each other. When you're dating, you know, uh, sometimes when we were dating, we took the kids with us. Sometimes we didn't.
When we first started dating, we tried to make sure it was on a weekend when the boys were with their biological father, so it was just us two before we got the kids involved.
Imagine if I had my own kids from a previous marriage and you had, your boys, we brought it together. Maybe 6 months into it, we might like, man, we don't have time for each other. We didn't think it was going to be like this. I wish we knew how to navigate this. This is a mess. What do we do? That's what we're here for. We're really happy with that. And then, stressors of co-parenting. I'm going to let her address this because I was just kind of on the sidelines doing all this. For 13 years, I was kind of the one I was in the support role of this because I didn't have any kids of my own. So she was the one that had the co-parenting, meaning she was still had to deal with the biological father, custody issues and arrangements and scheduling and all that stuff. So you got anything to add about all that?
Um, well, we had a the divorce decree said we had to do, certain things, but the attorney said, as long as you agree on it together, you can pretty much do whatever you want to. So we did that. It's just kind of we had stages where we, got along really well and did things really well, and then, it didn't work out so well, and then we, it just kind of went back and forth a little bit, and then as the boys got older, they started working and, gotten to where they just didn't go over
Yeah, I
there
know
as
that
much
really
because
matters,
they just got busy,
Yeah.
growing up and stuff. So, but
And you got to deal with the different rules and the different structures. We do
rules,
things
yeah.
in one house, our house, and they do things in their house.
And then we go to church faithfully, and they didn't. I mean, they were Christians, but they didn't go as much as we did. And then there's, when they are going to church, they're going to our church one weekend and then the other church the next weekend, and
Yeah.
that's just hard on
That's
the
where you
kids,
get, yeah, the structure difference, the whole structure differences. And when we were, I didn't say we were just naive about it. We knew there's going to be issues. I don't think we realized the gravity of the issues, the real, we were kind of hopefully optimistic, but a little bit ignorant, naive.
I think I was naive because, I came from a infidelity situation, and I thought, oh, we're going to get married and everything's going to be great, and you know, um, and it was, but like you said, there's just problems that pop up that you don't think about are going to be there, So it's been, generally good, but there's been issues that have come up that you didn't see coming.
And we have a saying, we didn't know what we didn't know. We just
Hmm.
didn't know what we didn't know. If there were certain things that we knew, there were certain things that we were prepared for in our mind, this could come up. This could be an issue. We need to work on this. We need to have a plan that when this certain thing happens, when we have issues with the boys wanting to spend more time at their other parents and not wanting to do things with us, and or uh, balancing out time with the kids and us. How do we balance out time with the boys and then balance out time for ourselves? Just different things. Another thing like money management. Uh, when you get married and you come from previous relationships or marriages, you're going to have your money and you're going to have her money or his money, your money and my money. It's going to be, it sounds kind of bad, but it's true. Like she had stuff that she had to be responsible for her boys. And for the most part, I tried to make sure that I took a lot of responsibility on that. But she brought her bills, and I brought my bills. We didn't like clean our slates, come into marriage with a clean slate. And that's not realistic. It's just not realistic, especially in the time of day we live in. You can't just clean your slate and say, we're going to be married this, like 19 years old, starting all over. You can start all over, but when you're, 39 years old,
Yeah.
when you're 39, 40 years old, that slate's not going to be very clean. So you got to be up front. So I got these circumstances, I got these financial responsibilities, and you got these financial responsibilities, and you got to be able to work them out. Budgeting in a blended family, it looks like different than it does in a what do you call it, a nuclear
Traditional family.
traditional nuclear family. Budgeting looks like different. And I wish somebody would have sat down with us and said, these are going to be the issues that you're going to have: intimacy, the parenting roles, spiritual issues, integrating children together. Like I said, I don't have any biological children of my own, so we don't have the sibling rivalries. But that's the kind of stuff that's going to go on. And I wish that we would have had some upfront counseling on this. Maybe I wish we would have spent like a couple of months, about 5 to 10 counseling sessions talking about
Well,
this.
there wasn't any. There wasn't any,
There wasn't
which
any.
is another issue we'll get into.
And they, oh, yeah. But that's what we're here for. That's what we have a passion. We have a passion for helping you that's in a place, situation you're going to get remarried and you're going to bring kids into it from other relationships. You're going to do a blended family. We want to help you to be better prepared. So, um, some of the things that we didn't hear, some of the issues that, we had, we're hearing things now. Well, you don't do this, you don't do that, or wow, you can go to this place and go to that place. Um, we thought first we thought we're just going to get married, and we had some bad relationships, bad marriages, bad situations. Her and I, we're going to get married. It's going to be great. We're going to make it work. I'm going to jump in there and I'm going to be the dad, and they're just going to love me, and it's going to be great. Boy, it didn't work out. It's probably better than a lot of
Yeah.
remarriages, but we had struggles that we never really thought was going to happen. Um, there were things we could have done to make our marriage and our family better. One, we're probably too stubborn to say we don't need these books. We don't need these books. What do we need these books for? What do we need to reach out to people that have this blended family counseling? We don't need that. We're going to figure it out. We realized that, well, maybe that was some faulty logic. Um, and a lot of times there's things that we just didn't know. We didn't know that you can do certain things and it would have made your marriage better. And what are some of the things that we've recently heard in these podcasts and these books where they tell you if you're in a blended family and you're having troubles, then reach out to
your church
your
marriage
church,
ministry.
marriage mentors.
Yeah, we didn't have any of that.
Well, we went to a big church, a good church, but there's no marriage ministry at all. And like, I'm not knocking the church; it's a good church, and a lot of churches are probably just like that church. No marriage ministry. Not forget the whole blended family. There's some churches that have a marriage ministry and they have a blended family ministry. Like some churches, was it you went to the divorce care?
I went to divorce care at a big Baptist church in town, and it was great, and I learned a lot. But the class wasn't inside the church; it was across the street in the house. I guess the church had bought the house to use it for stuff, whatever. But like, kind of felt like, yeah, they're doing this ministry, but we're not going to do it inside the church. We're going to do it over here in this house. So we're going to, keep it on the down low over here. But I mean, it was a great program. And I'm glad I did it. But I kind of felt like I had to go take my kids. My kids were smaller, and so they had a little program for kids in the church. So I would go take them, drop them off in the church program. Then I'd walk across the street to the house to do the divorce care.
So some places have divorce care. Some places they have a lot of programs that I think, well, they can have a program that focuses on drug addicts and alcoholics and people with addictions, and that's fine. You know, I'm not against that, but they don't want to have anything that um, helps people wanting to get remarried. Can't do that. That's taboo. We can't talk about people that have been divorced and want to get remarried because what the problem with that is. Church is not wanting to have a divorce and remarried group, like you blended family group. You know why don't want to do that, right?
I think it's making divorce okay. Like
Yeah,
they're saying, well, there's nothing wrong with divorce.
yeah. A lot of it's maybe ignorance. They want a lot of it they don't want to promote the idea that they are giving promoting divorce. They don't want you to think that this whatever Baptist church promotes divorce. So we don't want you to get divorced, but if you do and you get remarried, we got a place for you. But we don't promote divorce. We don't promote divorce. And next show, I'm gonna do a show on divorce and remarriage. What does the Bible? What does Jesus say about divorce? We're gonna go straight to the words of Jesus. The next episode we're gonna talk about divorce and then remarriage. And what does the Bible really say? Using the words of Jesus himself. But a lot of churches, they don't. I think the preachers and the leaders of churches, they know what the Bible says, but they're afraid that a lot of the church culture, especially Southern Baptist. Southern Baptist is bad about the whole divorce thing. If you're divorced, you can't be a preacher, you can't be a deacon, and oh my goodness, we better not have no divorce and remarriage small groups. Can't have no blended family small groups. And make it look like we're promoting divorce. And I don't like that. It shouldn't be that way. So we thought about, hey, what if we could reach out to the church that we were at, the big church, say, we're trying to do a small group effort. What if we do a specialized group to where everybody in our group are going to be people that have been divorced and remarried, and they're going to church? You would think that'd be a good thing. We got married people from divorces. They've been remarried and they're going to your church and they need help. So I think instead of saying you're on your own, we don't want to deal with you because you've been divorced. You know what's going to happen is they're going to get divorced again.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to create some way to help you. So now we're doing that through YouTube. And maybe in the future, we would like to have, our goal is to have a small group, physical small group in our home or somewhere in a church setting or somewhere to where you can actually, we can actually sit down and listen to other people that's been divorced and remarried, hear their struggles, hear their problems. We can all talk about it and help each other and mentor each other. Uh, so that's that. Uh, so what does a step family ministry look like? Before I got notes here, but what do you think when you think, we're going to do a step family, blended family small group? What would your idea of that be?
Um, a group that is Christ centered, and we read the Bible, and we understand that even though God doesn't want divorce to happen, it happens, and we can still be forgiven, and we can still be used of God to further His kingdom, and use our marriages can still be a picture of the gospel like it's supposed to be, and give hope to people that have been through that situation. And I know after my divorce, I just felt kind of broken, and that God's not gonna be able to use me again,
Yeah.
and so I think just to give hope to people who have been through that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's kind of what I think.
Well, look, I don't want to be boastful, but I'm just going to say, I do study the Bible and I do a lot of uh, studying and work and I want to serve and I don't want to be just a part-time Christian, and I want to serve and I want to, you know, bear fruit as a Christian. I mean, I'm just being upfront. Some churches, some organizations, especially Baptists, will say, "Well, son, you've been divorced, so you're limited in what you need to do." I don't like that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not our attitude. Our attitude is you can, like you said, you can be forgiven, and there is still hope. You can still be married and Christ centered, even if you're remarried, and we're going to talk about that next week. I'm starting to get wound up. All right, no, but it just saddens me that there's such a stigma on divorce and remarriage. Like I said, divorce is not God's plan. It's not even His backup plan, but it happens, and you can be forgiven just like any other sin. You can be forgiven. In some cases, the person that's been remarried came from a marriage where they were sinned against, and so they weren't at fault, and so they have to move on. And I'm gonna talk about that next time. But we want to help those that have moved on from a situation where they've been sinned against, or even if you were the one that committed the sin and you asked for forgiveness and you sought reconciliation and you had to move on anyways. So remarriage happens. That's what the training I went through says. Whether we like it or not, remarriage happens, and it happens to Christians in churches, and they're going to still go to church. They're going to be remarried, and the last thing that we need is for churches to you know go like this to the people that've been remarried. We need to be there for them, and we want to. I'm kind of going a long way around to say we want to be there for people that's been divorced and remarried and want to live a Christ-centered life. We're here for you. So I think the number one thing that I wish we would have had more of before we got married is premarital counseling. So premarital counseling for people that's been divorced and remarried is different from
Mm-hmm.
normal premarital counseling. Uh, Premarital counseling for people that get married again, I think that you need to talk about things like parenting issues. So our situation was different, but it was still unique. Somebody, because do you understand the situation you're getting into where you're about to come and marry someone that's got 3 kids, a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 12-year-old, you know, 3 different age groups, 3 different personalities. I don't know what you think that's going to be like, but it's probably not going to be anything. And it wasn't like anything that I thought it was going to be. And I wish I would have had somebody to talk to me about that and get me prepared a little more. Money issues, like I said before, my money, her money. She had boys, she had issues, she had, we're gonna get married, and I got to make sure they have health care and make sure they have their needs taken care of. And that's things that a lot of people don't think about when they get married, and that causes problems, custody issues. You know, uh, the other the other parents they're gonna be doing custody issues and custody rotations, and you got to talk about that stuff. You got to be prepared for that stuff. Faith and spirituality issues, balancing family traditions. Those are the things that I think are important that people need to talk about in the step family ministry, a blended family ministry. That kind of stuff needs to be talked about. Imagine what it would have been like we would have had a little more counseling like that before we got married.
Mhm.
You know, we need to make sure the couple wishing to remarry, we need to make sure they fully understand what they're getting into. Because when you get remarried, it's a lot different than being married for the first time. And I wish that we could get more support groups for these blended families where couples can get together and talk about their problems, talk about their struggles, and one couple's strength might be the other couple's weakness, and our strength might be somebody else's weakness. And when you get a small group with people together, everybody has something to bring to the table. And when you get a specialized group like a blended family group, they all bring different things together, and we can learn from each other. So that's why I want to do a small group step family ministry. And it's things you can do. You can do training. You can get um, training from websites or like the Family Life Ministry. You can get training and you can get curriculums that you can do, small group curriculum, specialize on blended families. And you have fellowship. And, and it's another thing with people in traditional marriage and then families in blended families. Sometimes fellowship's different.
Mhm.
And then if you had a group to where everybody was in blended families, you have a greater fellowship there, which a lot of churches don't have. And then you can do group activities, and you can make it into a fun thing. Um, and then marital counseling. So let's say couple been married, remarried in a blended family, a couple years, 4 or 5 years. They're having issues. They're having trouble, and there needs to be somebody there, and they can go to their pastor if the pastor is a counselor. Some pastors are not,
Mhm.
you know. Some pastors are just counseling, that's not their thing.
Yep.
And they don't have anybody else in the church. Some churches, some big churches, and I have heard of some that had people that specialize in counseling. They have elders, group of elders, or associate pastors that does counseling. Some churches don't. And so when you have problems in a blended family, it's different than other marriages. The problems are specific to the blended family. So you need to have somebody that can counsel you. And that's what we want to do. We've been through problems and we've overcame them. And so we want to be able to talk to somebody, families one on one. Like what that Ryan Selena said, the mentor family,
Mhm.
the mentor
Mentor
couple.
couple.
Yeah. We can be a mentor couple to somebody else that's going through problems. And some of those problems may be specific and very intimate, very private, to where you may have a private problem to where you need to have a couple that you can trust. And you may not want to go to a pastor or somebody, a deacon or an elder at church. You may want to go to a man and a woman married couple that you can trust. That's been there, been through the situation. Um, and our goal, like I read in the Family Life, and the one of the leaders of Family Life, Ron Deal, he says one of the goals of the Family Life Blended Ministries, the whether you have family step family ministry at your church, or if you go through online ministry, is we want to see the cycle of divorce end. And I saw statistics where the divorce rates are higher among previously divorced people than they are
Mm-hmm.
first time married people. So once you get divorced, there's a more chance that you're going to get divorced again, and that's another goal that we want to see end. We want to
Mm-hmm.
break the cycle of divorce. You have
Well,
anything
that
in
has a lot to do with your expectations going into the marriage. Is you think, oh, I'm starting new and I'm not gonna have any problems and everything's gonna be cupcakes and rainbows, and then you
Yeah,
get into that marriage and you're like, I still have all these same problems I had in the last marriage.
yeah.
And people
This
get
didn't fix it.
discouraged and they think the new marriage is going to fix it,
Yep.
and it didn't.
Let's go on 2 or 3 and 4 marriages. We'll
Yeah.
find the right one.
Instead of sticking it out and fixing your problems, which those problems are probably you, not just in general. You probably have your own issues you brought to the new marriage, and instead of working
That's
on
good. I like
yourself,
that's good. That's good.
you're
Yeah.
like, oh well, I guess I thought this was going to work, but it's not. Oh well, I guess we're gonna.
I like we both, and we're just gonna be upfront. We both kind of had. Um, this year's been a good year. It's been up and down. We had a lot of struggles. And I'm gonna talk about the boys' issues here in a minute. But we've overcame some things and we learned some things about ourselves this year that we've never figured out in the past 12 and a half years. And we've overcame a lot of things and we realized that wish we'd known this stuff earlier.
Yeah, like you said, well, we didn't know what we didn't know.
But now we know things. We know how when problems come our way, we know how to tackle them head on. And other uh, husbands and wives that are in this second and third marriage, God forbid, they may think, you know what, we just can't make it work. We can't make it work. We don't know how to make it work. We would like to help you somehow. So if you're watching this video and you got any problems, if you're in that situation to where you're a husband or a wife and you're struggling in your marriage, it might be your first marriage or your second marriage or your third marriage, and you like, I want some help. Comment, let us know, reach out to us. We'd like to be able to help you. Um, so this wasn't really on my script, but we've had problem with our boys, and I think a lot of it dealt with the fact that it might have been me indirectly, um, because deep down inside, and it's something that reading these books that you learn, I learned that you may think that the kids coming into your marriage, the stepkids or whatever, they're just going to say, okay, he's my new dad or she's my new mom, and it's going to be great. And when I go to my other dads, it's going to be great there, and I'm going to be able to handle it. But these kids, they're going to they're going to tend to want to what do you want to rebel? What do you call it? Be reluctant. They're going to be reluctant.
Yeah.
They're going to have their inhibitions, and they're not going to, you know, what do you call it, just blatantly dislike you, but they're going to hold on to some hostilities. And sometimes that's going to come out. We've had a problem with our first oldest boy. We had a problem with him for a while during his last couple years in high school, but he turned out great. And we have a better relationship now than we ever have. But that was a problem we had to overcome. And when we started having a problem with our boys, we had a problem with our second boy for a little bit. Now we're having a problem with the youngest boy. Every problem is different, and a lot of it deals with the remarriage thing. And I wish we would have had a little more training in that. So a lot of the things we're learning on our own, and we're just kind of going through as we go. Um, but now what we've dealt with and what we've learned, we can help you and others like you out there. Anything you want to add on that?
Um, and for me, as the biological mom, I think being the one that was hurt in the relationship, in my view, is like I want them to see that what their dad did was wrong, whatever, blah blah blah. And but even though he did things that were wrong, then he's still their biological father, and they still want that relationship with him. And
Mm-hmm.
so even though they still love him and whatever, and so that was something I had to overcome too. Is you know, well, even though he hurt us and whatever, he's still the dad, and still the boys still wanted to. relationship with him, and so that was something I had to overcome as well, and just accept that. You know, I did forgive and do all that eventually, but um, that the hurt that I see is different. The boys see that differently, and so anyway, if that makes sense.
Yep. So and the oldest boy, he's married and he's working on little girl number two, soon to have little grandbaby number two. It's great. And it's a great. We're really proud of him. And I tell her, I tell everybody, our oldest boy is the example of how you want your kid to be.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a doctor, he's not a lawyer, but he works hard.
Yep.
He loves his wife, he loves his little girl, and he's going his second girl coming. He's a family man, and so we're proud of him. And our second boy, he's going to college. He's going to be an accountant, so he's going to be the one that buys me a new Corvette one day, and he's going to pay all my
I'll
bills.
get a Mustang.
Yeah, he's gonna pay all our bills. So we're proud of him too. And he got a sweet girlfriend, and they're going to be married, and they're going to have a good family, and so we're proud of him. And our youngest boy, I just adopted him. He kind of got estranged from his dad. I'm not going to get into details, but the relationship just wasn't there. And so we both decided, probably about 6, 7 months ago, it's like, why don't we just adopt him? That way, you know, it's more legally stable for him, and he's going to feel,
A part of his
yeah,
part
he's
of
going
the
to feel like he
family.
belongs.
Mm-hmm.
So he, his problems were different than the other two. So I adopted him. So he's now my legal boy. And on his birth certificate, it looks like I'm his dad,
Yep.
from day one. So that's great. So, and these are things that somebody else may be in that situation where they're, you know what, we're in that same situation you're talking about. We want to help you. So if anything that we have said in this video is of interest to you, please comment and we will get back to you. I promise. So, last thing we want to leave you, and we're going to wrap it up, is some resources that you can use, and use just a few. And most of our resources for the blended family specifically, there's a couple of things now. We do marriage. Um, we follow some marriage people, Brian and Selena Frederick. They're not blended family. They're like ideal marriage people.
Mm.
They're like, if you want to see the ideal marriage couple, it's Ryan, Selena Frederick. Look them up. They're the
Fierce
people.
Marriage.
Yeah, they made the Fierce Marriage book, and they got a great podcast.
They have a Fierce Family
Fierce
podcast
Family.
too. So
Yep. Good Christian people. I think they're Presbyterian. I think they are, but still, they're great people. And if you want the ideal marriage, Christian marriage podcast, Ryan, Selena Frederick. But if you're in the blended family, like we're talking about, Family Life, Ron Deal, he's the guy that we go to. And here's some other resources. This is the book that I started reading and I didn't finish, and I wish I should have 14 years ago. The Smart Stepdad by Ron Deal. And there's also a Smart Stepmom too.
yeah.
Yep.
But I didn't need that.
Yep. Then there's
there's
Smart Step Family, and she's gonna talk about that in a minute. And this is the book that I read recently. I'm reading this other one now. She read that one first. I read this one, Building Love Together and Blended Families. This is by Gary Chapman and Ron Deal. Some of you, especially the Christian folks, know a lot of Gary Chapman as a minister, and he also wrote a bunch of books, not self-help, Christian help books.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one, the 5 love languages. That's him, Gary Chapman.
Yep.
And it speaks a lot about that in his book. I love that, the 5 love languages. And let me just read. I'm going to talk about this book. She's going to talk about the other book. But talks about blending together, how to blend together. And one of the things they really, really harp on for most of this book is the love languages. And we all took the love language test, and our boy took the love language test. So, this book is great because when you learn and it's not just some gimmick. When you learn what makes everybody tick, I learned that she likes physical touch and quality time, and our boy, he likes affirmation. Whatever it helps you. It's like, okay, I've been trying to reach out to him the wrong way, so he's rejecting me, or she's rejecting me because I'm reaching out to her the wrong way. Now I know. The love language test. That's what this book's built on. A lot of it. Then there's a preparing to blend, which is along the lines of these books here. Along the lines of these books, Ron Deal, Preparing to Blend. It's a book that you should read if you're about to get married again, and you're bringing the kids from other marriages. You're going to build a blended family. Preparing to Blend by Ron Deal is a good book. Dating and the Single Parent, another Ron Deal book, Family Life. So dating and the single parent. So if you're a single mom or a single dad and you have kids and you're going to start dating again, that's another resource. Then there's familylife.com/blended. What do you call that? Backslash.
Yeah.
And then stepfamilies.com. Those are other good resources. So she read this book and she highlighted a bunch of things. So you want to tell us some things about this book that you like?
Well, some of it I've kind of already said about God being able to still be able to use you. He talks about that in this book. One thing he talks about is not having high expectations. That sounds kind of bad, but when your expectations are too high, like we talked about earlier, you think all your problems are going to magically go away, and everybody's just going to be a big happy family, and it's just going to be great. And then you find out it's not going to be that way, and then you get discouraged, and then you're like, well, maybe I made a mistake instead of getting remarried again. Maybe that was a mistake. So, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold.
Yeah, we both are.
So,
I've heard that pneumonia is going around too. I'm
yeah,
glad
it
we didn't
is.
have that. Oh.
Um, so that's just one of the things he talks about is lower your expectations so you don't feel discouraged about what you think is going to happen and it doesn't. In other words, one analogy I really like that he does in this book is how to cook a step family.
Yes,
And he talks
precious
about
the
what
crock
not
pot.
to do.
Yeah.
And he goes through different kinds like a blender and food processor or microwave, pressure cooker, and toss salad. And basically those are like, you just throw everybody in there and expect them, chop them up and expect everything to work right. But his recommendation is crock pot cooking. So you just let things happen slowly, let everything blend together slowly. And he goes into detail about how that works. But I just thought that was a really good analogy. We were kind of like the blender. We just
Yeah.
threw us together and
Yeah.
just expected it to all come together good.
Well, like the fry cooker. We just put everything in some boiling hot oil and just hope it would just start cooking.
And then he talks about parental roles as far as the biological parent and the step parent. The one thing we did was, he's the dad now, so he's going to be the disciplinarian, and that was one thing that Rondell talks about, that the biological parent needs to be the disciplinarian, and the step parent needs to work
Yes.
on the relationship building.
Yes.
And that's something we wish we could go back and redo. But anyway, so that's something else I like.
But look. And I do not get, I don't go, yeah, it's right. Because, something that I realize and that I want you to realize too is the biological parent is going to be protective of their own kids. They're going to be looking out for them and they're going to make sure that their kids are not mistreated. Not that she thought I was going to mistreat her, but you're just going to be naturally favorable to your kids than you are to those that are not your kids, even your husband or your wife. You're going to see a conflict. You're going to see a conflict. You may think I'm not going to see a conflict. It's just not going to happen, but it'll be there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, give your spouse some grace if they tend to favor your kids over you, because it's going to happen. It's something that you need to just. I wish we just knew how to deal with it before we got married.
And that, I've heard a lot of people say, well, since that kid is your biological kid, then they come first. You take care of them first. And that's not right either, because your marriage needs to be good.
Right.
Because you don't want to go into another divorce. Right. And so something else he talks about in this book, even though the biological parent should be the disciplinarian at first, and the step parent should not necessarily take a back seat, but just be more of a relationship builder and backing up the biological parent, but that our marriage needs to come first. We need to work on our marriage and make sure it's solid. And that will also help with the kids, because then they will know that there's a secure relationship there, and because they've been through divorce already, they're already dealing with insecurity issues, so they need to know that your marriage is solid and that they don't have to worry about that. That's not going to be something they're going to have to worry about. And so that's also something that I feel like should be a no-brainer, but it's just,
It's hard.
something we had to learn
It's hard.
as well. There's a difference between, me being the biological parent and being the main disciplinarian, but also putting our marriage first at the same time.
Yep. And the kids might be thinking, yeah, yep, yeah, that Joey boy's a good guy. Good guy. I see him around. I see him at church. Boy, I mean, we have a good time together. We laugh and joke, and I like him. But sometimes I don't wish he ain't my dad. And sometimes I wish that he wasn't married to my mom. Kids think like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can't get mad about it and say, hey, I'm married to your mom, so you just need to like it. And and on the flip side, the other parent doesn't know he's doing secrecy, going, well, I know he's not your dad, but I'm still going to take care of you. She can't be the husband, whoever the other parent
Mm-hmm.
can't be in between you, and it's got to be like she said, the husband and wife marriage comes first, and the kids need to see that our marriage comes first, and you guys are second. And then once they see it consistently, but if you're not consistent, they're going to see that, they're going to capitalize on it, they're going to poke you.
And something else that he talks about in this book that I just thought about when you said that is that he talks about how to balance us spending time together,
Mm-hmm.
and then like me finding time to spend with my biological children so that they know that I still love them too.
Right.
And if he had kids, he would spend time with his kids and let them know. And then we would also have time as a whole blended family unit to spend time. So Ron Deal kind of talks about that too and tells you how to do, or suggests some things on how to do that so that nobody feels left out or, you know.
If you're, let's see, probably 30 or under, you probably maybe 35 or under, you won't understand this, but I'm gonna tell you, let's that show in the '70s, the Brady Bunch, that kind of ruined it for the reality of these blended families. Because we watch these TV shows, and it seems like almost all the movies and TV shows, all the families come from divorces. There are no um, marriages that stay together in TV and shows, and that's show the Brady Bunch. They just the perfect family. She had her girls and he had his boys, and they just got together and it just worked. That ain't reality. Brady Bunch is not reality. So we'll end on that. Anything to say before we end? No.
I guess so.
All right. Next week, I've been saying this for a while. I'm going to talk about divorce, what did Jesus say about divorce, and then remarriage, and then we're going to both talk about how we felt after our divorce, before we got married, the in between, the time, because that's a critical time, the time in between divorce and remarriage. It's a very critical time to where it can determine how the rest of your life is going to be. You got to be at a right frame of mind, and if you're not in the right frame of mind, then you're going to jump too quick into the wrong marriage again, and you're going to be back in, like he said, that cycle divorce. So I'm going to talk about the next episode we have. What does the Bible say about divorce? Because there is specifics on that. And then we're going to talk about our in between, before we got married, how we felt about that, and then I think we'll transition off of the blended family. We'll go back to the regular marriage podcast. So this is going to be our last blended. The next show is going to be our last blended family one for a while. We're going to transition back into marital issues, and so thank you for watching our show. And hey, if you like this show, give us a thumbs up and like us and subscribe. We hope you subscribe. And if you have any questions, please do. And even if you don't agree, you can say you don't agree, you don't like, and that's fine. I'll get back with you and I'll be respectful. But if you have any questions, if you have problems that you want us to help you with, please answer us. Please ask us. All right. So thank you, and I'll hope to see you next time.